Time to call our select board meeting.
Recording in progress.
Time to call our select board meeting of Tuesday, October 25th to order, and the first item is approval of the agenda.
Moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. There is one addition, item 10, town manager's recommendation for assistant town manager position. Is there anything else that anybody would like to add, change? With no other further amendments, all in favor of approving the agenda with the addition of item 10, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, next is approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I'm going to call attention to a few things. One is the proclamation for Small Business Saturday, which everybody is signing, designating or declaring Saturday, November 26th, our Small Business Saturday. Another is in the town manager report. There's a number of correspondence, and it's in our packet, with Leon Smith, who is here this evening. And were you planning to speak on this subject, Leon?
This much.
Okay, we'll do that in the citizens' comments, okay? And also, it's, we approved some time ago, I think it was first quarter, anyways, it was earlier in the year, quite a bit earlier in the year, support for the Vermont Land Trust to conserve a large portion of the Butler Farm, and that has gone to closing. So is there anything else that anybody would like to call attention to or speak about? Then all in favor of approving the consent agenda as drafted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, next is citizen comments. And Leon?
Leon Smith. I see we got a couple other residents here that will hopefully answer some of the questions too. So when I came before the board, my primary focus was just to clarify some of the issues regarding that legal trail. Kathleen has done that a little bit. All I'm asking is I believe the town should clarify that to the parkers and the abutters, particularly about what can and can't happen in that right of way. The other day I saw a person from Georgia parked there. I wouldn't want somebody parked in my driveway. You know, and I agree that the parkers absolutely have rights there, but I think it's just confusing the way the signs are placed. And if possible, those signs could be set back away from the right of way in such a way. I would lastly add that the customized language makes it very difficult in towns. I don't think we want to become a town where we start customizing language and this person can do this on this land. They can't do that on this land, particularly when access is being added through town lands, for which I'm aware, I believe there is no current agreements in place as to where and how trails are getting cut through these towns' lands. I believe it's the presumption that this is all just happening under malt. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that it needs to be clarified when you start getting into what can and can't happen on this person's land and who's crossing this and who's crossing that. And it's time to, I think, dust off the ordinance and other book and start looking at some of these things with malt and the other stakeholders and getting it clear to the public. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Leon. Jeremy, did you want to speak?
Jeremy Parker, Washington Street Extension resident. To address Mr. Smith's concerns about where the right-of-way comes into Washington Street, that does end up bisecting our parcel right at the corner there. And so the way it was posted was according to the state statute, which is at every corner and along your bounds in increments not to exceed 400 feet. So that's what I did, because we have a corner that's to the west of the right-of-way, and we have the frontage that continues down Washington Street. So I did talk with Nancy Malcolm about where the trail does access their land, and did move our corner sign back so that the trail was in front of our posted sign, therefore their sign and the public would see, okay, the trail is here, it's not beyond that, I'm not trespassing. The right-of-way itself, there are some things there from construction of the driveway that will be getting moved out. So as far as any blockage of that right-of-way, it's a bit of a moot point. It's a bit of a moot point in that that right-of-way does not go through. So the trail right now goes around on the Malcolm's land to access the TAM and that former right-of-way because the end of that is overgrown. If at some point, MALT, ACBC, anybody else would want to extend that through there so that it's within the right-of-way and not on the Malcolm's land or anybody else's land, but in the proper right-of-way, we'd be open to that. But like I said, for now, the temporary things will be out of there. With regards to the rest of it, I think I was pretty clear in my email correspondence with regards to how we posted the land according to the surveys and to the best of our ability. But if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think not at this time, Jeremy. I did notice in correspondence, and I don't remember if it was, because I'm a member of the Addison County Bike Club also, and it might have been their mailing, but there's one of the groups, MALT, Addison County Bike Club, somebody's working to get all of the, or maybe it was you, Jeremy, that working to get the agreements with all the different, with the Addison County Bike Club as far as trail use and everything.
Yes, as far as the trails that are on our property.
Ones on your property.
So once they leave the TAM or leave the parcel, the 4-acre parcel that the town owns, once the trails leave there, we have an agreement with Addison County Bike Club through Vermont Mountain Bike Association to basically cover our liability and our willingness to open up the land for trails, for the maintenance of those trails, use, construction, anything, mapping of those trails, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so that's how that's the reason why we did the customized posted signs, was to limit just open hunting. We are not opposed to hunting. We have 3 people hunting right now. They're bow hunters. We also don't want people coming on foraging for leeks, foraging for anything else. If we're growing ginseng or any mushrooms in the future, we don't want people just coming out there and thinking they can take whatever they want.
I thought that was my new shopping ground.
But there are the recreational trails, so we wanted to make it clear, like, recreational use is okay on those designated trails. In addition, a portion of the Vast Trail crosses the former Dutton parcel, which we purchased this past spring.
Yeah.
So the signs cover that as well.
Okay.
And then the usage or the agreements under those organizations covers and controls the use of those trails.
So you are going to continue to allow the Vast Trail to use that property?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any questions, anybody?
Do we understand what Leon's concern is, how to post, or what a private property owner could post with a town right away through it? I mean, is Jeremy in compliance, or do we even understand? I don't understand. I don't know what we're supposed to do.
I believe Jeremy is in compliance. The problem is in the posting law, and Amy Sheldon has worked to try to address some of those deficiencies. The problem is I understand what Jeremy's trying to do, but if Brian decides next year he wants to post to people riding unicycles and he wants to customize a sign or whatever, it starts getting really confusing. Like, if someone's walking on the designated trails with a rifle on Jeremy's land, are they hunting? So it's just a concern. I'm a little concerned about precedent, and particularly with the fact that the trails are accessed from town land. If there was no trails there, if there was nothing that would lead a person to just walk up through and walk on those trails, I wouldn't care. It's just that it gets kind of murky when you start going from one area of the woods, like Means Woods, where there's certain rules, and then you go to another area and there's not, and signage is not, it's a larger issue, but particularly to Jeremy's, I think he's in compliance, but it's just confusing.
Okay, and I do need to, I've been gone for a couple weeks, and I'm just catching up on the digest and all this, so.
so there's no action for us.
I don't think, no action at this time. This was just citizens' comments and for
Right.
clarification on, there was a number of emails and trying to understand exactly what the issues were. And I just sent to Kathleen. I don't think Kathleen had seen the ones from Jeremy's, that Jeremy had sent. I just sent them to Kathleen, so they'll have to get added.
I just wanted to add one other quick item, which Leon did mention. He said he saw somebody with Georgia plates parked up there. One of the reasons we did post the property, and it also goes with the naming of the road, or the allowance from the town for us to name the road based on the master plan of the residential units that we'd have down there, for 911 purposes. There have been a number of people just driving down the road or wandering down the road. They are not associated with us, they're not associated with our project, they're just out on a joyride. There were two folks on a motorcycle that came down one day, turned around and left.
Yeah.
Somebody from Massachusetts that said they were looking for East Halpin Road. They were a bit off on where they were. So part of it is trying to help reasonable people to understand this is not a public right-of-way or a public way to come on down. It's a residence, it's a farm, that's our intentions.
Yeah.
Do you have your residence built down there now? Here?
We have a barn being constructed and a cabin being constructed,
Okay.
per our permits.
You'd be shocked to know that I've had people park in my parking lot in Sugarwood and wander through the woods, and when I've asked them what they were doing, they said they wanted to go over the hill to see what the Parkers were doing.
Maybe you should have an open house.
So I fully respect the Parkers' property, rights and right to solitude back there.
Okay. With that, I'm going to invite Susan up, and nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Susan's going to walk us through the report on the town meeting working group.
Yeah, if you remember, you sent us away, I think it was in early spring, to work on looking at the options for town meeting and the alternative locations that would go along with it. It all started with COVID pandemic and the legislature giving us towns different options for conducting town meeting when it was not good to interact in a close range with each other. But it also brought up the idea of, well, there's other emergencies that might happen, and there's other situations that might not be an emergency, such as, renovations at the high school that you might know about it ahead of time, several months ahead or not, that would sort of impact where we have town meeting and how we would conduct it. So we went off. Our group was composed of Governor Jim Douglas, Kurt Broderson, the executive director of MCTV, town clerk Ann Webster, and myself. And what we did is we went and researched what a lot of other towns did during the pandemic and what other sort of historic ways towns handled other emergencies that might come up. And then we put together a list of what all the options were for our town, and then put together a list of possible alternative locations. And then Jim and I went and toured every single one and met with a bunch of very nice folks. And I just want to note that all the alternative locations, except for one, waived their fee for the town, and were also very accommodating for emergencies up until a couple hours before. And I think that speaks very well to the relationship that Kathleen and the rest of the town has conducted with all of our different entities in town who have nice spaces. So we just put together a comprehensive list of what would be needed at those locations, what's already there, what would need to be thought of, and we had originally intended to sort of rank the different options, but then we realized, depending on what would happen, would really just sort of change where you'd want to go and what you'd want to do, so we didn't rank them. We just kind of left them with all the information and put together the packet, and our recommendation to, I'm going to make sure I say it correctly, our recommendation to you is to have, as the town meeting warning is being drafted, to have the town manager, the town clerk, and the moderator meet and just make a suggestion to the select board of where and what you should be doing based on what the conditions are at the time. We chose where we are right now, which is the default location is the high school's auditorium as the baseline for where we're going, but anything else is kind of open. Some of the locations would be a lot easier to move over to, and others would be quite challenging, but we just tried to give a nice mixture of the different ones throughout the town of where we could go, depending on what sort of situations might come up. We also recommend that the specifics of the report be revised and updated as things go on, especially some of the alternatives. Certainly keeping an eye out for the hybrid online voting situation may change in the future, but for now it's completely not acceptable for towns to do that. So just sort of keeping an eye on a few things and updating as we go along. Not sure if you have any questions.
Any questions from the board?
This is a lovely survey of large gathering places in our town. It's really nice, and it's a great thing to have.
Yeah.
Really appreciate the work.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, that was my comment. There were some locations on here that I just would have never come up with off the top of my head. So I thought it was really nice to have a comprehensive list of different options. Like I would have never put the airport on
Yeah.
there, you know.
Yeah,
But
we
it's
had.
good. I think it's really a good list to have.
Yeah,
Thank
if we
you.
needed to be outside of town, we needed someplace that was big enough, so. It's not my first choice, but.
Yeah, but it's like you said, you don't know what this particular situation might be where you might need to consider an alternative location, but now we actually have a
Yeah.
list to look at to start from, so.
And all the contact information and all the sort of, I think it was really nice of the college to offer extra chairs and tables for wherever we would need them. You know, stuff like that is just really good to know.
Yeah. It's great.
Are we ever at capacity for the high school auditorium
Town meeting?
for town meeting?
No.
That's not been the case.
It's never packed.
Yeah.
I think the last time it was full, it was an AC.
It was when the
SC,
merger.
When it was.
Oh, sure.
The big debate.
Yeah.
On
Right,
town
yeah.
offices. It was.
Oh, the
It was
town
standing room
offices.
only,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the Mary Hogan site was a little bit packed when we had the town meeting there.
Yep, there was.
It looked packed at least, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also in the situation where if, you know, there was water damage in the auditorium, you can move over to the gym, you know, that kind of thing. And I think it's just, it's a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. It
This is
was,
great.
it was a lot of fun, and
It
glad
was
we're
a lot of
done
fun.
too. Thank you.
You're hanging
And
around.
you got the
Governor.
calendar for November 9th or whatever it is?
I do, I'll be back November 7th. I was gonna say after the 7th, so.
Well, I'm talking about for the training over in Montpelier,
I
Barry.
do.
Are you, okay, all right, so we'll connect on that.
We'll connect on that, but I'll see all of you on November 7th for the informational town meeting.
And the 8th,
So,
probably.
Thank you.
That's great. Forget
Thank you, Susan.
Okay, bring in Dan in, or,
Emily. Emily.
yes. Somehow it said, oh, it says Dan and Emily.
Hi there.
Hi,
Hello.
Welcome.
So Dan, he could have the night off.
Wow, I like that. Take charge. When in charge, take charge.
Kathleen, do you want me to go through the project update, or does that sort of speak for itself in what was
I think there's a lot of interest in the status of the Colonial Drive project, so if you just want to run through that real quickly, that would be nice.
Okay, so I have not, that's more Dan is in charge of that project, so I haven't checked in with them this week, but they were planning to mobilize tomorrow to start bringing the paving equipment out there. And I'm guessing, given the rain this week, we're probably looking more at next week before we actually see action out there. But there was a car accident that impacted a curb right on the corner there. That's been repaired. And then they're aware that there's some structures that need to be lowered as the paving goes through. So they're in the loop on everything that needs to happen. And then I think the final piece will be vacuuming out any storm drains after the fact. Everything's stabilized, but it'll just be a matter of if any material got into the catch basins, they'll go back in and clean those.
Is that our last paving project of the year?
Let's hope so, Brian.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good.
Well, Washington Street project is pretty interesting with, I don't know if anybody's noticed the lining that they did. They only lined the replaced pavement, so we have thirds of the crosswalks that are painted and center line striping that stops 20 feet from the intersection. It's pretty bizarre.
Yeah.
So,
We only
They
paid
did
for 8
only
ounces of
what
paint.
they were
right?
required to do.
I saw that. I saw that. We got nothing for free from them.
Yeah, I was surprised we didn't get a complete top coat in that project. I was,
I don't think it was originally in the plan.
yeah, I guess not. And I don't know what the difference in durability
No.
is between
Yeah, we
what we
have-
did and getting it all done in one coat.
I
I
think,
think also, given the cost of asphalt this year, it's probably better to hold off for a year or two.
Yeah, that makes some
and
sense.
there may also be, like, we only did the water line in that area.
Mhm.
I don't know what the condition of the sewer and wastewater and clean water, stormwater, is
Yeah.
in that area, so. That project was specifically just water, so
Yep.
I'm sure everybody would be really excited if we dug it up again anytime soon.
I heard more
Anyway.
about that project than the others, for sure.
Which one,
Peop-
Washington
the
Street?
Washington Street.
I heard a lot more about Colonial Drive, but.
For frustrations dealing with it.
Yeah, and, you know, that's a main area. So, and it was chopped up for kind of an interesting chop up there, so.
Yeah, there was big chunks of time with no work being done, the road closed, and heavy equipment just parked on the street.
That's kind of the comments that come out.
Yeah.
It's a hard location there, since there are so many businesses, but it's also the connective road for so many residential areas. It definitely prime real estate.
Well, it's done.
I think they did a pretty decent job keeping the businesses open and operating. I mean, we were never impacted during daytime hours to get in. It was kind of a four-wheel drive road for a while, but you could at least get to the
Oh
co-op.
my God, I saw someone lose their bumper on that stretch right in front of the co-op.
Is sometime were we going to talk about the capital improvement plan for 2024? I mean, that's what, is that?
No, just to let you know what's going on, and
Okay.
the Infrastructure Committee will be making a recommendation soon, and there will be
Okay.
a full presentation to the
Great.
board once.
We do have a meeting this Thursday, the second meeting on the capital budget, if you want to come.
Okay.
That's at
Thursday.
8?
No,
No,
9.
9.
9.
9.
9 on Thursday.
I could just be in meetings all day then.
Okay, Emily, we want to go jump into wastewater treatment facility?
I would love to. So Bob Wells, you probably read the memo that he submitted. He's requesting $29,743 to replace the seal in pump 1. It sounds like so there's 3 pumps in the main pump station. Pump 2 was installed in 2016 and then failed 5 years later. And when they were reinstalling that pump, they realized that pump 1 had failed, which had been installed a year after. So it sounds like these seals are sort of on a 5-year cycle. So he's requesting the funds to replace pump 1 now, and then he's going to budget for pump 3, which was installed 2018. So hoping we can get into 2023 before he has a similar situation, to replace that seal as well. But that will go into the capital budget for the next fiscal year.
I'll move to approve a contract for Aqua Solutions for the purchase and replacement of a split seal for pump 1 under the sole source provisions policy in the amount of $29,743.
Good.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. I guess next is the report on the bike pedestrian scoping study for Boardman Street to Hannaford Plaza.
So this one, you probably all saw the presentation that was included in the packet. At this point, it's just a scoping study, so we made observations. Most of our concerns were based on safety, but we consider alternative 3 to be the best option of the ones presented. It also provides, like, not only is it what we think is the safest, but it also provides connectivity to the TAM trail that's on the east side of town there.
Emily, I'm trying to get that up on the screen. Hold on.
Okay.
10 pages down or something.
There we go.
Oh, no.
Okay, so this is Boardman Street,
Multi-use on the,
and it
East
would
side.
continue on the north east side of the road up until the existing sidewalk in front of the Marriott.
And then there's a.
Then there's a little connection here
Hmm.
that has been long requested between the housing complex and the Hannaford Plaza.
Yeah.
So what does that connect into at the Hannaford Plaza? Just the parking area? Yeah.
There's an existing sidewalk there,
Right here.
but the portion of it that goes across that parking lot and down to the housing area, it's low, and I think it collects a lot of water in that area, so it'd be improving that section of it.
I see. Okay.
And this would have people using the crosswalk that's already between Walgreens and Hannaford?
Exactly, yeah.
There's no crosswalk at the Boardman and Route 7.
Correct.
There's no crosswalk.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
That's because there's no lighting there.
Right, like,
Yeah.
We
you
could
don't
place
want a
the cross.
crosswalk,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, that's
Coming around the
still
curve.
going along at a pretty good clip there.
Right.
We already had people crossing there for the TAM anyway, so.
Yeah. I love the idea of a tunnel, but I think this makes more sense.
There is one there already.
Pedestrian tunnel?
Well, no, it was a cow tunnel.
Okay. Yeah.
Back from the Sabrants, right?
Except I guess it's pretty low, so not necessarily usable for,
Yeah.
but there is a tunnel there.
Interesting.
I asked because I was curious what that line was, and then Candy said they went and found it.
Yeah, interesting.
Yep.
I want to see the cow tunnel.
Field trip.
Yeah.
Very, very short cows.
Right.
Any other comment on that piece of it,
Brian?
the scoping study?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I think the
Hold-
last
hold one
item
there.
that I'm on here for
Oh.
is just the capital improvement.
Hold one here, please, Emily.
On the map where the sidewalk goes into the Marriott parking lot, is there a sidewalk designated in that paved, in the hotel area, or is it just, you're just walking in their traffic?
No, there's already a sidewalk there.
There is?
Yeah.
Okay, is it separated from traffic, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thanks, I couldn't tell.
Okay, we handled the question here, Emily, so we're ready to go on to your capital budget review.
Capital budget review, we're still in discussion with it. As Heather mentioned, we have our next meeting on Thursday for the infrastructure committee. So we gave our presentation 2 weeks ago, but it was a pretty packed agenda, so we saved all of the comment and questions for this coming week. I did include a presentation in that meeting, which is attached to the agenda tonight. Just a PowerPoint that sort of shows the major highlights of the projects, since we're proposing to use a lot of ARPA funding. And we also have a CW SRF grant for the stormwater wastewater separation on South Street.
Any questions or comments? It sounds like you've got your next meeting coming up, and then you'll be ready to give us a full recommendation to.
I think the plan is we'll finish things up and make a recommendation and then have that for the first meeting in November, right, for the board?
That's November 7th.
That's the reason for.
November 7th is shaping up to be a pretty intense meeting. So we'll see if we can fit it in.
Or maybe we do it the second one, yeah. Anyway, we're meeting twice in October to try to complete our part of the recommendation so that it's ready to go to the select board and whenever it fits in November.
Okay.
Some time ago, we had a sort of a list of water priorities. Could we potentially get an update on which ones we're looking to
Done,
knock off?
the
Yeah,
next
what's
priority.
done and what's next on,
Sure. The next big thing we've talked about a little bit already, and that's the additional water holding on,
Chipman Hill.
So that one is in engineering. And then I think that South Street, but beyond that, we could certainly update the list beyond that.
Yeah, I'd just be curious to see it and
Yeah.
have a sense of where we're headed.
We got South Street and Foot Street are on our current proposal.
Yes.
Yep.
Lower part of Foot Street.
And possibly Bakery Lane as well. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, maybe get through the budget part and we can
Yeah.
get that
Yeah.
updated. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, thank you, Emily.
Okay.
Next on our agenda is just a general discussion about the Bakery Lane redevelopment, and the economic development project possibilities, basically EDI, and to discuss what the board's interest is at this point in moving forward with a project of this size, and this would help inform our Ilsley Public Library 100 project team on their options. And so we really need to kind of look into, see what questions you have, thoughts you have, and help, and if there is an interest, if it makes sense in the board to move forward on that. So I will open well, let me just preface it with a couple things, because brainstorming, what are some of the things that, if we were to do this, one of our concerns is always staff. And we know that this is a big lift. I think if we were to do this, we would need to make sure we were committed to outsourcing some of that staff work and hiring somebody to do that, and that would be part of any project budget. Because we do not have, this would be intensive, and we're just not staffed for this size of a project.
Is that a clerk of the works?
That's, well, I think first, project management, you're looking at, we've we've talked about and worked with on the peripheral, White and Clark a little bit, as far as getting us through the process of the looking at options and designing and getting developers interested in it, and that type of thing. That's a big lift.
Sure.
And the last time we had Jamie Gaucher, who was here, who did a lot of that work, but we don't have that staff position anymore, and so that would be one thing that we would, I think, have to be committed to do, and if we're going to do it right. And then, well, let me not prejudice the conversation anymore. So for that, then I'll open it up to get your thoughts and questions and just see where we're at on this particular issue. And if you looked at the notes and some of the questions, one of the other options that the 100 project team has looked at is asking us whether we would be interested in allowing them to talk about with the neighbors about buying those properties and see what that would look like. So that's all part of our discussion here as to if there's any thoughts on that as well.
As someone new to the board, I know there's been town interest in this over the years, as you were mentioning. What have the stumbling blocks been? How has this been?
So the last time there was, I think there was 3 stumbling blocks. Number one was timing. We were getting ready to go into the big bridge and rail project, and so to have 2 major projects, that's a lot to get your head around.
Sure.
Number 2, there was, I think, we hadn't gone through the master planning process, and I think a lot of people didn't feel they'd had any chance to provide any input into it. So it predated our master planning process, and we only had one developer come forward with a proposal. So I think there was a lot of questions as to whether that was what we really wanted.
Yeah.
And then, lastly, I think some of it was personality driven. There was just some discord in the town over personnel.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
You know what I found really interesting when I was on page 9 and 10 of the EDI public meeting summary of the presentation was all the overarching goals from 2015 are pretty much similar goals we have now. Finding a place that's multi-use, finding a place where friends and family can join together, finding a place that's energy efficient, finding a place that has affordable housing, right? These are all things that people have been asking for a while, it sounds like, right? And we're still hearing it louder and louder. So I think whatever we do, really keeping those overarching goals in mind of a professional meeting place, energy efficiency, a place where people can really see themselves. I think that's really important for me in this, and I think a lot of other people.
Well, it's, right now, obviously, we have in the project team, we have and Joy, you can jump anytime you want. We have the 4 choices that we're looking at, and the 2 big ones, obviously, are renovating and expanding, and the EDI site, and they both offer some pluses and minuses. Obviously, the easiest way to achieve it is in the EDI site, much easier to build from scratch than it is to renovate this building, which has some incredible challenges in it. And shortly, we should have, in a few weeks, we should have estimates, purely estimates of doing the project, not procuring the land or doing the infrastructure for the building project, but just the buildings. So, you know, we've discussed and had discussions about the fact that the library could be the start of the EDI project, could be the cornerstone of the EDI project. There's potentials there that we could partner with other people, other companies, other developers to build a library and build something else, housing or storefronts or some other type of structures. So there's, and also doing the EDI site, we wouldn't have to close the library or move the library, and there's a lot of cost in moving the library temporarily. It's $1 million or millions to do that, which would add the cost. If we did the EDI site, that we would just make one move at a time. So, you know, I think it's a great opportunity right now for us to start working and envisioning this and trying to get in, and we've had some discussions with Nick about bringing in developers and having discussions with developers to see how they see it now in the current atmosphere we're at for building, and maybe taking a look at how the library could fit into some type of into the development and be the lead. So I think I think this is an opportunity right now for us to push forward and say, yeah, it's available, but you know, let's see where it goes and see what's available to do with it. I think it's a great opportunity. We talked about in our select board retreat, we talked about how the EDI was very important and that we wanted to kickstart again, and it's been a year and we haven't done anything since then. So we have a project that could move us forward, and I think we should move forward. Joe, when do we think we would feel comfortable about making a decision on?
The project team is considering 4 possible options. It appears that the 2 that you've identified seem to be more favorable. I don't know that we're going to be able to come. There's so many unknowables, right? I went to a session at the United Way did on Friday, Leadership in an Age of Volatility, Uncertainty, Complexity, and Ambiguity. And that's where we are, I think, especially with the EDI site. So, but I think probably in January, you know, we certainly want to narrow it down from 4 to 2. Given all the uncertainties about it, I don't know if we're going to be able to come to you and say, hey, it's this one. I don't know if we're going to have those answers
right
at that time. But I think what would be helpful from you would be to have you say, hey, go ahead and look into it, and with our blessing and so on. There are a lot of questions though. I mean, would it be with the developer? Would it be just a library? There are some people I think who want to look at that entire area, you know, not just say, hey, one part of it, but, you know, would we look at everything altogether? I think the challenge here for the library is, as you know, the boiler is on its last legs. I mean, you know, if this project, the EDI project, stretches it out, you know, 4, 5, 6 years, we're just going to be limping along there. So, but I think what would be helpful for you would be just yeah, go ahead, look at it, and that question as well for the possibility of exploring some neighboring properties, or the other option, which would be renovating and expanding in a manner somewhat similar to the 2017 feasibility study.
But I also think it not only saying, yeah, go ahead with this, but I think it would be our responsibility and the town's responsibility to be assisting in this and looking to see if there are developers. And I mean, our committee doesn't have the ability to do that, but more so through this board and the town, we do have the ability to go out and talk to developers and see if there's any interested out there as we did before.
Yeah, so clarity of roles, I think. would
Right,
be-
yeah.
I don't want to assume that you all know the history of the Next Bridge project.
We do.
At that time, I think 6 requests for proposals went out, and Next Bridge was the only respondent.
Right.
The others did not see it economically feasible. And their proposal included the parking structure, which is a huge expense, and it seemed like this would be part of that. In the end result was they would be charging people to park in their structure. They also wanted tax abatement to make the whole thing possibly. At the time, it was for economic development and growth in the town, and their anchor was to move something from the hill down into the village. That, to me, wasn't economic development. So it's very complicated. I hate to see the library get postponed and dragged on when the needs are so great by creating a big economic vision and planning. And if it's a standalone project down there, that would be interesting. But I just don't, and the way their economy is going now, the costs are going to be much more than they were back when Next Bridge was here. And so I think we ought to think carefully before we make this the number 1 location.
Well, I think we are thinking very carefully. We're meeting twice a month, and the staff is working very diligently in doing this. And we do understand the Next Bridge. Economic conditions are significantly different than they were 6 years ago, and I think we really need to be looking at whether it's yes or no. So we will certainly take into consideration everything you've said, and we understand the history. But it would be a lost opportunity maybe here not to at least start asking the questions.
Just one more comment. I do not think we should overlook the very strong emotional attachment of very many people who've grown up in this town to the original Hillsview Library building. And were the decision to go with a new structure, it would be incumbent on the town, I think, or this group to come up with an adaptive reuse for that building, which, as we know, has some challenges. Or maybe not. I mean, what happened in Manchester, they just left the old building and moved to the new one. But
No, I think at least the oldest portion of it, it would be something that we would want to try to keep, and it would be not just the town, but the developer, everybody working together. This is a team project, and it's going to take a lot of input. I would disagree a little bit on just plunking a library and not planning the entire.
Right.
We have one chance to plan the entire area, and whether that's done in phases or if that's done all at once, I don't know what makes the most sense without having somebody really look at it. But I.
In terms of simplicity of the project moving forward.
Well, we have some real issues that we have a potential to maybe work some on. This housing thing, we've got Summit's doing one project, but that's not enough housing really to do what we need to do for long-term vision of Middlebury, and so.
Experts housing was all going to be high-end apartments in order to afford the project. It was all.
I get it. I'm just saying, we're not doing Next Bridge.
We're not doing Next
Oh,
Bridge.
The town, we're looking at, is there another solution? Is there another way to do it? Some of the things with the Next Bridge, the town had never defined what the town's role is. And I think before you get developers interested, we need to define what's our role and what's our interest. And that's where we could potentially have, White and Clark are familiar with doing these public-private partnerships, and they could lead us through, maybe a brainstorming session and just figuring out what is it that we would contribute. Maybe it's a $1.99 year lease on the land. I just throw out as an option, because land acquisition costs, if you look at the briefing that we got from Jen, she put in there an estimate of a couple million, 2.7 million or something for land acquisition costs. And if you didn't have that, does it make more sense and you get more developers interested and you get a better project in the end? So I think we have a lot of work to do, but the question of the board isn't to shut it down just because of the fears. Are we interested in trying to tackle a large project like this? And how would we do it? We can't go back to something that didn't work. If we're gonna do it, we need to recreate it, but with the vision and the knowledge that we got through our downtown master planning process.
Yeah, one of my concerns when we talked about this last year was just that if we went forward with a project that was just gonna be retail and potentially high-end apartments, that it would take, that piece of land and make it feel inaccessible to a lot of people in town. And so I love the idea of, like, our wonderful library, being in that location, because the library is really a place that draws every single aspect of the town to it, So even if there were shops and, apartment, higher end apartments, there would still be that, I think the public would still feel some ownership and belonging there. And I really don't want to develop that area if it doesn't feel, welcoming to the whole community. But I do think it's wasted, very much wasted as a parking lot, because it's, it's right downtown, it's a beautiful spot, but it's paved and not particularly attractive. So, I always have questions that don't have answers yet, and I get stuck in the weeds, so I have a lot of concerns. But in general, I think, partnering this idea, the EDI idea, with the library is a really good plan, like a really good thing to consider.
Heather.
I am supportive, just really, really, really do not want to have a wastewater treatment police station project where we do the adaptive reuse, almost 20 years later? Like, if we're gonna consider, building a library in an alternate space, the adaptive reuse, revitalization, whatever we do with the existing library is going to be part of the plan. And it's gonna be included in the cost, and we're gonna do it at the same, or in phases, but it's not gonna be 20 years later.
Yeah.
Because it is right downtown.
You mean it's not gonna be a Burlington, mall hole?
So I think that does change, the costs a little bit. Because you're basically considering building new and renovating at the same time. So I'm just curious what that ends up looking at. But I could easily, like Lindsay just said, get into the weeds. In general, I think I'm on the same page as Lindsay and what she said, in that I'm ready to look at what the possibilities are down there. I am also concerned, like Joe mentioned, the library is really limping along and has been really limping along for several years. And honestly, if the number one recommendation would be to build new on EDI, how are we're gonna have to limp the library along.
Yeah. So I do have a question on that, Joe. I couldn't find the notes. So the recommendation was to go to heat pumps, and was gonna be close to $1 million system. Is there a much cheaper but not as good not environmentally as friendly or something, like just putting in a new boiler? That at 200,000, is there a much?
I don't know if that was considered. I think that a number of years ago, when it was clear that the boiler was failing, I think we put something in the capital budget for the boiler, it might have been 25,000, something like that. The heat pumps, initial estimate was maybe $800,000, $800,000, and it jumped up to maybe 1.2 million. And we found that in order to install those heat pumps, it's a complete ventilation system. It's not just like your house where you
Yeah.
drill holes in the wall. It would actually mean shutting down the library for a period of months in order to install the heat pump system. But
Which is why I asked the question.
Dana is on Zoom here, and she might have an answer for that.
I just want, like, if, we've gotta be thinking about that shorter term, especially if we decide to make a recommendation that's gonna push our library out a few years. Like, how are we gonna address getting the current library to the point where a new library would be open? And what's that gonna cost too?
Yep.
Okay, so, just to carry this particular discussion, if there's interest at the board level, what do you think of creating a small working group? Town manager, zoning, and a member from the select board, just to put together, to work a proposal on how we proceed on this. Maybe reaching out to a consultant or two and seeing what their interest would be, what the cost would be for them to walk us through a project, and bring that back to us.
Might we consider using Judith Harris services? Like, could we afford to consider paying her some to take that pressure off town manager and planning to do some of that work with?
Well, I'm not talking about them
Right, but
planning the
just,
project. I'm talking about reaching out to a couple consultants, talking about the project and just seeing what the, I don't know.
I
You're
know.
saying having Judith call around to a
Yeah,
couple.
I
The only reason, because it'll be those three entities that we'll be working with, so we kind of wanted somebody who everybody feels good about. Because we'll be working a lot with Jen and Kathleen and us. So that also is, I mean, I can see both sides to that. I'm okay with either way.
yeah, I'm just thinking about the funnel and how much work both Jen and Kathleen already have to do.
Well, Kathleen could figure out if she needs to use Judith, right? Judith is already working on the library side, so.
Yeah, it just, choosing to use Judith, we would incur some additional costs.
Right.
And do we have money in the budget? Is that something that Judith can help with? You know, does that take a little pressure off Kathleen and Jennifer? I don't know, I'm just asking.
You have any thoughts on that?
Why don't I sit with Jen and talk through what it might look like and how much time might be involved?
Okay.
And what
Have
we
your
might
new
need to
assistant town
consider
manager.
for money? Yeah, what'd you say, Dan?
She said she'll have her new assistant town
Yeah, I
manager.
was just thinking, we've got another resource coming in.
That's a little further in the agenda here. Can't talk, we haven't hired yet.
Haven't hired him yet, so can't plan yet.
Okay, so, just kind of a little around, you're okay if it works? Basically, you'd be willing to look at the project?
Yeah, you gotta promise me it works.
Yeah, we gotta look at the, Andy?
Oh, my gosh, yes, please.
Yeah, Farhad? Okay, I heard you say yes.
Yep.
Yes, okay, so, it's on the table, and we're gonna work as a select, well, we got budgeting season is upon us, so, but we're gonna start the basis of reaching out and seeing, if you could work also to see, as we work with Dana and just kind of look at what's that bare minimum that would get you through 3 years or whatever a project would take to get, you're talking 3-4 years to do project like this, probably.
Well, I will point out that you have charged the Ilsley 100 project team with coming up with a recommendation to you. It might not be that one, right?
Yeah,
Just right.
yeah, I'm just,
Yep, but we've started the ball.
that, so you're coming to us in the beginning of the year. That's when we'll be kind of through a lot of the budgeting, well, not through it quite yet, but getting there. So the timing might work out okay.
This is good.
We're gonna have some parallel planning with the select board, looking at what that would look like for us.
Trying to work closely with you, that's our
Yeah.
our goal, one big happy town.
Even if we don't put the library down, it's good that we're starting this EDI, looking forward to do this, so.
Okay, I'm gonna move on then.
You can catch the last half hour. Okay, tell me how you do, okay?
Next is discussion and adoption of the proposed revisions to the select board policy book. Was that, I think that was presented to you all when I was gone last meeting, and I read through it. Are there any questions or comments on it?
The only thing, I think Andy brought this up at our last meeting, was what's our plan to review and, if needed, update policies?
I think Andy's idea to do them on a rotating basis, maybe put them into thirds and have a policy review committee appointed annually of select board members.
Yeah, if we have two of
You
us.
and Andy are already on that right now.
Right, there we go.
It did sound like Andy wanted to head that one up.
I think he did.
Yeah.
Nothing I like more than a good policy.
You the man. Okay.
I can move to adopt the proposed revisions to the select board policy book as recommended by the policy review committee.
Second?
Moved and seconded.
I thought Andy
Any
was-
questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Kathleen?
Okay. I am pleased, delighted, and relieved to recommend David Suffren as the town's next assistant town manager. After a 3-month recruitment process, including 72 applications for the position, 11 pre-screening interviews with my executive assistant, Crystal Grant, 7 interviews with me for different candidates. 5 applicants rose to the finalist position, and ultimately, after a day-long interview with David, which included meeting with several department heads, visiting our wastewater treatment facility, and having lunch with Brian Carpenter, an excellent reference check, and a clean background check, I have offered the position of Assistant Town Manager to David, subject to your approval pursuant to the town's charter.
What's his last name?
Sovereign.
Suffer. So you survived that day.
I told him that you, I bet I'd have gone home and taken a nap after, that was the longest interview process.
Yeah.
She put him through his paces.
Yeah, that's
It's
rough.
so pleasantly surprising that 72 people applied for this job. Whoever did not get the job, can you send them to my store? I'm giving up now.
Well, and following up on Andy's interest and Izzy's interest in policies, David has done a lot of work on policies.
Nice.
Oh, yes.
Including some recent work on food trucks, parking.
Oh, very good. Oh, I like all
And
these things.
street
Yeah,
sweeping.
good.
Things we need to know.
So he is familiar with some things that go on here as well. And interestingly, in his reference check, he also has done some work with nonprofit groups on analyzing the impact of Wilmington's policies on underserved communities and advocating for change.
So it's mentioned that pursuant to the charter, we have to approve this. What positions reach the select board, and which do you take care of without our involvement?
Anybody that's designated as a department head.
Okay.
Comes to the select board.
Thanks.
Which may be something now that there is worldwide access to your agendas. It puts our applicants in a difficult position where I have offered them a job offer pending your approval.
Yeah.
It was one thing when there
Right.
wasn't worldwide access.
Yeah, that is interesting, right? Because in theory, their employer knows that they're leaving, they might not have this even though they got an offer from
Yeah.
you. Yeah, awkward.
When does he start?
Subject to your approval, he starts November 28th, day after Thanksgiving,
Fantastic.
weekend after Thanksgiving.
And he's relocating and
Yes.
having
Housing?
housing,
Or should we
like,
build something?
Kathleen's
I-
gonna convert her garage.
Yeah, I've got a guest room. We can make something work. I think.
Okay.
I said put him up at Brian's house. There's plenty of me. He'd live in Brian's house and they wouldn't even find him.
Just build something on town land and put one.
Zing.
Keep an
That's
eye
still
on him.
sore.
Don't laugh at Leon. When I was at the International City Managers Conference, I met with the town manager of Aspen, Colorado, and they have had to acquire housing for town personnel that's based on their income. And the town owns a considerable number of properties
Wow.
for
Sure.
their
Wow.
critical response staff,
Wow.
like
Yeah.
police officers.
Wow.
Not surprising.
Interesting.
Wow.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Absolutely. The candidate looks amazing on paper. I'm glad that he looks fantastic in person as well. This is a great catch for Middlebury, I think.
Yeah.
Very excited.
Hey, Kathleen's done a phenomenal job filling critical positions here, so.
Absolutely. In a time of tough hiring.
She made it look easy.
You might just want to hire Kathy.
Okay. Pleasure of the board?
I move to accept Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey's hiring recommendation for the Assistant Town Manager position as presented.
Second.
I almost think Heather got that one.
I think she does.
She was
Yeah.
close. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
dual second on that one.
Those opposed? Okay.
I think we're gonna need to hear his voice, though. Is it buttery? Does he sound like?
God, good.
I mean,
That was not one of my selection
Oh,
criteria.
oh, my God. He was enjoyable to talk to, though. Very knowledgeable. He's a great addition to our team because he's got some, like Kathleen said, some experiences and things that we're dealing with. And one of the things was, what was it with him that I talked about the nonprofits sharing administrative, you know how like a lot of the nonprofit, you got a lot of them that have similar type of things, and they could have one administrative office that would do it all, which Andy's going to head up the focus on.
Regionalize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, or, you know, you got all kinds of different nonprofits in Middlebury, at different
Absolutely.
missions,
Yeah,
but
no,
they all
and-
need an
and share your
administrative.
financial,
Yeah.
expertise, do
That's a
those
lot
kind of
of-
things. Oh my God,
That's a lot of
huge.
what I do at the community foundation.
Is that what you're doing?
Well, the payroll
Yeah.
I do is for several nonprofits, not just the community foundation.
Awesome.
wow, I did not know.
Dan, it's nice to know you did finally get into the office, so why don't you do the check warrants?
yeah.
here?
I move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $608,455.68, consisting of $495,385.33 for accounts payable and $113,070.35 for payroll for the period of October 12th, 2022 through October 25th, 2022.
Second.
All in
Yeah, that
favor?
one too far.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? I'm going to let you go first with board member concerns.
I didn't write it down. I knew there was something, but I don't remember what it was right now.
If it comes up, just let me know. Andy?
There was as a parent of a Middlebury College student, my partner, spouse is on the Middlebury Parents Facebook group, and there was a post there last week from another Middlebury parent announcing with some joy that they had purchased a downtown house to use as an Airbnb, which had both other Middlebury parents glad that there was another option to stay here on weekends of high demand, as well as some local folks a little concerned that it was diminishing the long-term, fully occupied residences available in these communities. This is a piece. There's a lot of factors that are nibbling away at the existing housing supply while we are not replacing and increasing the stock the way we should. There's also these REITs, real estate investment trusts, which go through and purchase formerly owner-occupied houses to turn them into rentals at whatever they can extract to create a stream of income off of capital investment as just another way to diversify your portfolio with real estate. There's a ton of things which are diminishing the ability for people to own their houses, which remains a path to financial security and long-term financial security. It's unfortunate. It goes along with the absentee landlord issues, which we got to address again yesterday at the Public Safety Committee meeting that we had here. Yeah, it's unfortunate, and I'm glad it's a priority of this board.
Thanks, Andy. Rod?
So I'm so glad that we have an assistant town manager now. I think after a couple of years, we are going to be almost fully staffed now. So it should take some of the burden off you, Kathleen. I'm happy about that. The other thing, I don't know if everybody else may have gotten an ask from Front Porch Forum, from the towns. They want us to contribute some money.
You want us to what?
Front Porch Forum.
What
They
about
they sent an email hoping that the town would give them some donation.
I frequently write things
I know.
saying that
I think we talked about it last year or the year before. So I'm not saying we should give them or not, but it's something I got an email from that. Please consider donating so we don't have to charge you.
But we have a process for that.
we do.
Donation, they should charge.
They got a lovely, huge kick from the state to expand to all of the towns. They are a for-profit business. Their financials are not visible to anyone.
That's true.
I feel very badly about giving them public money.
I don't think you make a donation to a private business.
What is it called? Public-private something?
They are a public benefit corporation, which is
Public
actually
benefit,
just
yeah.
another word for a corporation. All corporations, in theory, from the dawn of corporate existence, are for public benefit. It doesn't say anything about their mission beyond that.
I think for the most part, it's a gossip forum also.
It is a great service. I wish that they had turned it over to UVM, Computer Science, or Vermont Tech or someone to work on expanding it once they had built it up. Anyway.
Okay. Dan?
The only thing I've got is, I'd just like to say what a great car show that was. That was absolutely fabulous. That's probably the best event we've ever had downtown. There was people here downtown that had never been downtown.
Because
It was everybody. It was a great mix.
I'm really remorse that I missed it because we were out hiking, but one of my staff brought his car down and got a Best of Show award, and he couldn't say enough nice about how, I mean, Middlebury's not a place he would normally hang out, and it was
And it was
really
nice
cool.
that there were vendors
Oh, the
there
vendors
as
there.
well. A lot of car shows that you go to don't have the vendors.
Because of that show, we had a very brisk business, and I could not come see the show because I had to tend to the store.
Wow.
It brought a lot of people in town that day.
It was awesome.
It looked like the vendors were doing really, really well. The food obviously was, but I think everybody who was selling was doing really well.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, if they have a minivan division next year.
Man, there some of the cars were just, it was amazing cars, so.
Do we just note as thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and BMP for,
Yeah.
for
Yes.
That would be good.
holding that function in Middlebury? Okay.
I got nothing.
Nothing, okay.
I have two things. One is that the DEI committee is at the point of doing community conversations. There was one going on tonight for BIPOC community members. They did not get a good turnout at the first one, which was LGBTQ, the LGBTQ community. But we will be talking about how we might be able to reach people and get their feedback. But there is a general one on Thursday from 6:30 to 8 right here in the big conference room. So that one is open to anyone. So if you have anything to share about your experience in Middlebury and how welcoming it feels or not, that would be a good opportunity to do that. And the other thing I was going to mention is that it's Diwali, and so if you pick up your Indian food on Friday, which you should because it's delicious, make sure you wish them a happy Diwali, because I was talking to Narendra last year, and she was saying, like, it's a little, there's not obviously a big community of people here celebrating that particular holiday, so she was saying it was a little, underwhelming.
Yeah.
So I think.
They had something at the library.
Yeah, they're doing a kid, she's
Yeah,
doing
Renee, I saw her yesterday, and she told me that she met with them and they
Yep, they
did a
did it.
presentation of some sort. at the library.
Yeah, she explained to the kids what it was,
Yeah.
and I think
Festival-
they made little
Festival of
lamps.
Lights.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
It's pretty exciting.
I'm sorry, what time was that again?
for the meeting on Thursday?
Yeah.
6:30
Okay.
on Thursday, here.
I remembered what I was gonna say.
More on Thursday.
Go ahead.
Take a minute. So I've been struggling with, as I know many people are, with broadband internet service to my house and my provider. And the other day, there was a vehicle parked in the bottom of our driveway as my husband left, and he stopped to ask him, can I help you? And it turns out they're with a company installing wire for Maple Broadband
Right.
in my area, and supposedly within 6 months it will be available. So I just was shocked because we had gotten requests to do some money
Yep.
for them, and I don't think we ever got anywhere, but I am so excited to have an alternative option where I am. And I think it extends up the whole Halliday Road section, which the people along there are even worse than what I have access to. So I just wanted to mention that there's actually some build-out going on in Middlebury.
Yep.
So
That's a surprise to me. I was on the Maple Broadband Board for a while and on the communications subcommittee for a while after that. I stepped down shortly after I won the election of the select board. But the thought was that they needed to go through Middlebury to get to underserved towns, but that the charter from the state basically said that they had to build out underserved communities first, and that Middlebury didn't count, and I'm glad that they can hit some of the parts of
Well, I
our town
wonder,
that.
so I'm very close to the Salisbury line.
Right.
So I'm wondering if part of the build-out is
Yeah.
access to also then Salisbury.
Sure.
But anyway,
That's great.
I just was
Oh my
shocked
gosh,
and
fantastic.
excited, and I thought it would be interesting for the rest of the board to hear that there was some work going on. They were actually stringing
No, yeah.
lineup in my area. So.
Was that report in our last board packet, or or?
The annual
not one?
report, I think it was in this board packet.
Is it in this board packet? Yeah, we have a report that talks about their build-out and where they're at, So,
Didn't get that far.
What's that?
Maybe, maybe it's in next board packet.
Oh,
okay,
maybe
'cause
it's-
I was gonna say, I didn't
Okay.
see it.
maybe you didn't see it yet.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sneak peek.
Really?
I just remember I've
Brian's
seen it,
keeping
so.
things from us.
Yeah.
What's that?
You just figured that out?
Okay. I just have one thing, in that Middlebury College Board of Trustees held a dinner to thank all of the community, first responders, and certainly they wanted to, they thanked the town leadership for everything that the town has done to help them get through and be a national leader in keeping their kids on track for education, everything through some very difficult times in the COVID environment. And while we were there, just in general, for our good working relationship with them. And we do have a quarterly, we finally have quarterly back on the agenda in December sometime. So we'll be getting with everybody in November and figuring out what we want to talk to them about and who it's going to be. But it was a nice affair, and they had you know, a lot of people there, but that they wanted to thank, and it's really pleasant to see the college recognize that they're not they may be on the hill, but they're not alone on the hill. And they did make a comment that they recognize they are the town's college, and Victor, if he's probably not watching, but he would have, it would have done his heart some good. So we do have need for an executive session on real estate. Lindsay, you've closed up.
Oops, taking too long. Anybody have it up?
I had shut down too, but I can.
You guys were ready to leave, weren't you?
I got it.
In accordance with Vermont's open meeting law requirements, I move that the board find the premature general knowledge of the consideration of real estate matters would clearly place the select board at a substantial disadvantage because the select board risks disclosing its litigation strategy if it discusses the real estate matters in public.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I further move that the board enter into executive session to discuss real estate matters under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont statutes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going into executive session at 8:24.